Welcome to the Making Sense of Marketing podcast series, Insights into Success. Today my special guest is Bill Smale, who's a member of the Smale family, who are renowned for their development of their family farm in Takapuna in Auckland. Right, Bill, thank you for agreeing to come on the podcast. I was just wondering if you would be able to start off by giving us some insight into your family history and in particular how they came to own the farm in Takapuna.
Okay, well, the farm in Takapuna was purchased by my grandfather around 1936, long before the Harbour Bridge was thought of, and there used to be a tram that came from Devonport to Takapuna on the old concrete road, and you used to have to travel by ferry across by car and passenger. And I can remember going across them a few times with my mother on the ferry, and it used to take about 6 cars at a time.
Wow.
And it used to dock at Devonport and go across to downtown Auckland. And sometimes you'd wait 2 hours to get on the ferry. It was like a barge attached to a tugboat. So,
and was that the main way to get to the shore, unless you drove all the way around?
Yes, that's right. Yes, you had to go right round the top of the upper harbour. Well up and out through top of Albany Hill and around the top way. So and that road wasn't too good in those days. It was all gravel and it wasn't a great experience either way.
Right.
So the shore was quite separate in those days, and my father, he used to do the banking years ago when the B&Z was in Hall's Corner in Takapuna, which was on the corner of this little shop, and there was a hardware store, and the bank used to be at the back of the hardware store.
Really?
So that's when it started many years ago. So I don't remember that far back, but I do remember a lot of it. And I remember going down to the farm with my father, milking the cow for the milk in the morning when I was very young, before we had milk deliveries. And the local streets around here, most of them were gravel roads, all solid concrete. So it's quite a change. When I look at it now, there's been massive changes in my lifetime, let alone any older people look at it and they can see huge change in the North Shore.
And what about in your father's time? Presumably during that time is where it really took off, and the connection between the shore and the CBD became sort of relevant, and they looked to build the bridge. Yes,
well, when the bridge opened in the early or late 50s, I think it opened.
Right.
It changed the shore dramatically. The motorway came all the way to Barry's Point Road.
Right.
It's quite funny. Barry's Point Road used to come off and then go along Taharota Road and through North Wairau, and that was the main highway north. And that was when the bridge opened and the shore started to develop. And it wasn't really until the 70s that the farm had its ups and downs of trying to develop. We looked at shopping, we looked at all sorts of things. And then the big crash, the financial crash in the 80s, the late 80s, early 90s, was when we got a new zoning on the farm for office park.
Right.
And that allowed us, even though there was no demand in those days, the demand had dried up because most office type businesses had all folded, property development companies had all gone bankrupt, and everybody was struggling financially during that time.
Yeah.
So that's when we started planning, and in 2000 we opened the Clear building, which was Clear Communications. And the farm has gradually developed over the years into what it is now. My family, my brother and I and my cousin have done the development, with my brother mainly leading it.
Right.
He's the keen one on the farm, and which is great. Nobody in the family worries about that. We work as a team, and he's the best leader for that. We've all got our skills, so we all use those skills in different ways.
So you've all sort of naturally found your own position within the family.
Yes, which is great. We all work. We're all shareholders, and we all work in areas that we find beneficial to the overall development, and that's very important in a family business.
Yeah.
Because there can be strong conflict in a family business, and I think finding your right niche in that family business is great. and others recognising that niche, and good communication is vitally important.
As it is in all businesses, isn't it?
That's
Communication's
right. Yep.
often an issue for businesses.
Exactly.
Regardless.
Yeah.
And presumably, obviously, within that, you all were allowed to have space to do what you were allocated to do.
Yes,
so you could all feel
correct.
that you
And
could
we have our
contribute.
regular board meetings, and now my brother's in there basically a lot of the time now, a lot more than I am, a lot more than my cousin is, and also he's got 3 children that are in there. In that area helping. They're all in property and interested in property, same as my son is. My son and I are doing another development between us, so which is quite good. We're doing a residential development, so
Right.
that's great.
So as much as you were fortunate that you had the family farm in a location which ultimately, because of the bridge, became an important farm in terms of the overall growth of the shore. It wasn't always easy though, was it? Like, it wasn't just because you had the farm in a great location, it wasn't like a guarantee of success, was it?
No,
you
it
had some
definitely
real
wasn't a
challenges.
guarantee of success. We definitely had our challenges. We had a lot of planning issues. We spent hours and hours in court, planning tribunals. Everybody told us it wouldn't work. It was just, we had problems with the local council at the time. They had a different vision to what we had. And the interesting part now is the fact that they now look at us and hold it up as what they expect the shore to develop like in the future, which is refreshing, and it's
And
great
ironic.
to see. And ironic, yes,
Yeah.
it is ironic.
Yeah.
Yes.
So taking a little step back, I'm interested to hear a little bit about your journey, though, in particular, and like when you left school, what was your goals? What were you planning on doing with your career?
Well, when I left school, I wasn't interested in school. I wasn't interested in school at all. I had a business while I was at school. And
Did you?
Yeah,
What
I
sort of
started
business?
out mowing lawns and things, and I had quite a good little business running. And I used to go to school to eat my lunch and play 500, as was most of the members of my class. And the
Right.
interesting thing is that we were in the bottom class in the high school, and I never got my school C. I left.
Right.
I decided I'd had enough. I just wanted to go and work.
Yeah.
And when I left school, I went and worked for my father for a short period of time. And while we got on very well, he didn't want to change his business.
Right. Okay.
So I had these ideas of changing the business, and
what was that business?
He had a earth moving business
Right.
and quarry and things, and
Yeah.
used to have all these different materials that, crushed stone and big pieces of stone, rock, different types of rocks and
Yeah.
pebbles for gardens, and white pebbles and brown pebbles and all sorts of coloured pebbles and sand and all that sort of aggregates.
Yeah.
And I wanted to bag it, get it bagged and sell it in bags, because we could get 4 times the price for the product.
Yeah, much better margin.
And people used to be coming in all the time with their trailer and their bags, wanting to fill their own bag. And I looked at that and thought we could do a lot of development there. And he said, he didn't want to do that. He just wanted to sell it in bulk. And he wasn't interested in developing that, which was fine.
Yeah.
And I worked there for 18 months. And then I left. And I went to work in a driving school for a while. And then I
It's an
decided...
interesting change.
Yes, and then I decided to do my own thing with a driving school, and it was quite interesting because the owners of the driving school that I was with told me that I wouldn't do any good as a driving instructor, with a driving school.
And why
there
was that?
too many driving schools around,
Right. Okay.
and that I wouldn't do any good. So I went out and bought a couple of sort of sports cars. They were like Ford Capris in those days,
Right, yeah.
2-door coupe sports Fords,
Yeah.
and I had them all sign written up, and I left them parked outside the high schools a couple of times. And then because that's where most of our students used to come from to learn to drive, and I found that I got inundated with students to learn, and that became quite successful. Then I sold out of that.
See, if I can just interrupt there just for a second, the important lesson there for listeners is you knew your market.
Exactly.
You knew the DNA of your potential customer,
Yes.
and then you targeted it. You knew that if
Yes.
you had some cool-looking cars, A, that would really appeal to them, and B, also set you aside from all the other competitors
That's
out
right.
there. So immediately you had a point of difference.
One of the main important things in any business is to have an edge, and it's to have a point of difference.
Yeah.
And that's why boutique businesses often flourish. You'll often look at people and think, how could you possibly make money out of that?
Right.
Doing that.
Yeah.
And it just blows me away sometimes when I look at what people make money out of.
Yeah.
And to me, it's because they've got passion in what they're doing, and it's that passion that's extremely important in a business. If you don't have the passion and that drive to make it work, it will struggle. You could put 10 people in a row doing the same thing, and one will shine. That's when you go to places like, for instance, Fenton Street in Rotorua, and you look at all the motels, and there's rows and rows of them. Everybody goes to Fenton Street to find accommodation because they know they'll find something.
Yeah, absolutely.
So they go there, but there's always about half a dozen of those motels in that street that are fully booked every friggin' night. Doesn't matter when it is.
Yeah.
And they're always full because it's the way they operate. And they're not the cheapest. They're never the cheapest.
Right.
People will pay provided you offer the service. People don't mind paying if you offer a good service, and that's vitally important.
Yeah. I think definitely one of the lessons that I've learned from personal experience, but also talking to other people, and you've just touched on it, and that is that passion. There's people out there that are all about, they want to get rich. They don't care how they get rich, they just want to get rich. And then you've got the other people that are passionate about a problem. Now, if I was to put money on who's probably going to be more successful and financially more successful, it's probably the one that's going to be passionate about it. Because if you really believe in something, you'll really go to the nth degree to get there. But if it's all about just making money, that's very superficial. And when things get tough, chances are you're probably going to bail.
Yes.
At least that's my experience.
Well, it is, and that is quite correct. Like since I've left school, one of the interesting things is that approximately 70% of my classmates have become multimillionaires.
Wow.
Now,
not bad for the dumb class.
No, we're at the bottom.
Yeah,
right?
but obviously smart, but just not academically
Yes, they're
smart.
not academic. And I think that's what's wrong with the system today.
Yeah.
So many children or students go to university and they're told by their professor that if you do this subject, and parents are brainwashed into it as well. They're led that way because they think, well, the university says and the schooling system says, my son's going to do really well or my daughter's going to do brilliantly because they're studying business or they're studying whatever the subject happens to be.
Yeah.
They're going to do extremely well and they're going to walk in and get this well-paid job. Well, it doesn't work like that in the real world, unfortunately. And I've got friends that, he was mad on surfing. He spent his life surfing. He was never at school. He had barnacles on his knees, basically. He spent his life surfing.
Yeah.
And when he left school, he went off and he did his OE and he ended up in Hawaii and he married a girl in Hawaii eventually. And he used to be surfing there all the time and he opened his own surfing school. And now he's a multimillionaire doing surfing. His 3 sons are in the school with him.
Yeah.
And they run that surfing school and he's made millions and millions out of it. And he teaches all the movie stars and all to surf. And he's in Hawaii. So, there's lots of success stories made out of a hobby, which is really, really amazing, for people to see. And don't underestimate your own ability. Right, is what I would say.
Right.
Often used to look around at people and think, oh, look at that. Those people, when I was younger, he's got a new car and one in a big house. How the hell's he ever afford that, to do that and succeed there? But it's a matter of sticking to it and not giving up. Keeping your passion, focusing, communicating well. Communication's extremely important in business.
Yeah.
If you don't communicate with everybody, it's a disaster.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit more about what happened in your career since, you did the driver training. What did you
Okay,
go on
well,
to?
I moved on from there and went into running a service station,
Right.
petrol station, which I did for 10 years, and that was interesting. Um, I wasn't a mechanic. I like cars. I've always liked cars. Cars have always been a hobby of mine, and they still are. And but I didn't know much about mechanical things. But I used to work on the forecourt, and I worked on the forecourt to keep my workshop full.
Right.
So I focused on what I was good at and put others in charge of the workshop side, and we worked as a team again.
Yeah.
And what I recognised when I was doing that was the fact that in the early days there was no such thing as servicing your car while you wait. So I recognised that a lot of women came in to get their car serviced but didn't want to leave it for the day because they had a hair appointment or something. It was always 90% of it was hair appointments, which were the most important thing. And they needed the car that day.
Sure.
But they'd leave it for the morning or they'd leave it for a couple of hours in the afternoon, but they didn't want to leave it all day. So what I learnt was I decided to run this drive-in lube service. So I opened up a drive-in lube service where they could drive in, have a coffee in the room and read a magazine while their car was being serviced. And that worked really well. And we were the first ones to ever do that. And that grew. And from that, we filled the workshop because while they're doing the lube, they'd find, oh, your tyres need replacing, fan belts needs fixing, all sorts of things on the car needed fixing for a warrant or something like that.
Yeah.
So it would then fill the workshop, and I used to do the same on the forecourt. I used to look at cars and say, look at the tyres, do all those sort of things, offer a really good service on the forecourt so people would always come back.
Right.
And you'd have a joke with the customer and, things, crazy things, but it always worked. Communication with the customer is key.
So again, I mean, you've really understood your target market.
Exactly.
And then you've looked to cater to it. You've addressed some potential impediments for them.
Yeah.
And got a success
So
from that.
I moved on from there, or at the same time, I built a motel complex, and I ran that. Well, actually, my brother built the complex.
Right.
The first stage of it, and I bought it off him and decided to develop it. He was into building units and things at the time, and he bought the old Takapuna Rugby Club site originally and built this motel on the site. And then I bought the properties adjoining it and expanded it. And it was interesting because when I went to the bank to borrow the money to build the second stage, I wanted to build large 2-bedroom apartments on the site.
Right.
And the bank wouldn't lend me the money because they said people don't rent 2-bedroom apartments. There's no such thing in New Zealand. And I said, well, we have a lot of people on transfer, and the banks were one of the ones that used to transfer staff around a lot, and along with a lot of other businesses. And they would move them into Auckland or out of Auckland, and they'd need somewhere to stay while their furniture was being moved into Ireland or overseas.
Right.
So they would stay here and work out a period and then go overseas to Australia or wherever they were going, UK, and vice versa. People would come into New Zealand waiting for their furniture and stuff to arrive. They'd be looking around to buy a house, and of course it always took 2 to 3 months to settle on a house and wait for their furniture to arrive. So there was a big market for people on transfer. So I decided I would build these large apartment type units, and the bank refused to lend me the money. So being me, I started in any case, and I just started. Right?
Did you?
And I got myself 3/4 of the way through.
Right.
And ran into trouble because I didn't have enough money and I couldn't pay the bills. And in the end, I went to my father and said to him, look, would you put up a guarantee for the bank? I want to borrow the money, but they won't lend it to me. Would you put up a guarantee to the bank to allow me to finish this off, and then once it's finished, I can refinance and get rid of your guarantee?
Yeah.
And so he reluctantly agreed, as fathers always do. And and I finished it,
Yeah.
and lo and behold, I was full from day one. And
Wow, amazing.
funnily enough, most of my customers were bankers.
Right.
So
Again,
they
an
were on
ironic
transfer.
situation.
So, yeah, 60% of my customers were bankers.
Right.
So on transfer around the country.
Yeah.
And oil company executives, we had all sorts of different companies. And then I started a relationship with Crown Relocations, who had a relocation arm, and they were always looking for accommodation. They were struggling to supply the accommodation. So I hooked up with Crown Relocations and offered the service to them with
Right.
fully serviced apartments. So when people rang to Crown to say, I'm coming to New Zealand, and they'd say, oh, well, we'll offer you a full service. We can organise the accommodation. So they would then get in touch with us and say, Mr. Jones is coming in from the UK on the 26th. Here's his contact details. Can you contact him and make arrangements for his
Sure.
accommodation? So we would handle that side of it. And it was a great working relationship.
And presumably that was the first, like no
That
one else
the
was doing
first.
that?
Yeah, nobody else was doing it in
Right.
those days. So that was interesting. Must be 40.
we don't have to
I
worry
won't go
about
that
that
far back, but it's a
No.
long way back.
Yeah.
So that proved to be very successful. And there again, it's recognizing a niche in the market.
Yeah.
Often when you start a business, one door opens another. You don't realize where you're going. You think you're going down a path,
Right.
and then 5 years later you're going down a different path. And that's quite common. And it can be caused by all sorts of things. Financial issues, it can be caused by opportunities,
Yeah.
hopefully mostly opportunities,
Yeah.
which open as you go along.
So the key is, based on that comment, is really to be flexible and have your eyes wide open for opportunities
Yes,
as you
definitely.
progress.
Yeah, definitely have your eyes open for opportunities, because there are lots of opportunities out there. It's just a matter of recognising them when they come along. I'm heavily involved in freedom villages as well, lifestyle villages.
Right.
Now, we're not really a retirement village. We're like a retirement village. We come under the Retirement Commissioner, and we operate similarly to a retirement village, but we operate on a license to occupy basis. We share the capital gain. We're quite a different model to others. We have motorhome parking and boat parking, storage areas, secure area for motorhome and boat parking. We have bloke sheds. We have women's sheds in some areas.
Oh, okay.
We have a big recreation centre built on site.
Yeah.
We're introducing electric cars to the villages shortly.
And they'll be just like you're
and
loading them.
yes, they will be able to, instead of having to have a car, you'll be able to just go and pick up a car from the centre, go do your shopping and bring the car back and
Right.
and return it. So it overcomes a lot of people having to have a car when they're only doing 1,000 kilometres a year to go do the shopping or go downtown. They can go and pick one up without having to worry about registration and warrants and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
What's interesting with the motorhome parking, our village that we're completing shortly in Matamata has got over 90 motorhome parks, and the village is only not even 3/4 completed, and they're all fully booked.
Wow.
So people could go in from the age of 50 in ours, which means that the village is a lot livelier, which is an important thing in village life. People don't go there to die. They go there to live.
Yeah.
And
right. That's an important distinction.
That's a very important distinction. They go there to actually live.
Yeah.
And I think since COVID has happened, a lot of people have realised that it's lonely being locked up at home.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in a village, you have got other people around you, and things are organised for you. We have large Mercedes vans available in the villages, which are self-drive. So you pay for the fuel, and you can take 12 people, and away you go. And,
Right.
and some of the younger ones drive, and they'll go off doing things during the day. We don't have bowling greens. We don't have all those sort of things. We have social activities other than main exercise. Mainly lifting the right arm and putting it down.
See, again, what I'm hearing here is like it's and referring back to your father, but also to other operators in the retirement village sector. Like with your father, he had a formula that he believed in, and that's what he wanted to do, and that was it. So very much tunnel vision. This is what I want to do. And I think with retirement villages, which I've had a bit of experience with myself, dealing with the developers, and again, they tend to have this view on a formula. That's the formula, that's the template, and they take it everywhere. Right. But what I hear from you, which is transcended across your different businesses that you've told me about, is that you actually get down to the target market level and listen to what they've got to say and then look to cater for them. So rather than having a set preconceived idea of what you are going to do, you listen to the market and that dictates where you go. Would that be?
Yeah, that's definitely correct.
Yeah.
Every business I've been involved in, and there's been a lot,
yeah,
and they're all in different industries, which is quite interesting as well, because I've had to get my head around all different industries. Like Wireless Nation's another one that we're in. We're in a niche market. I joined Tom, my business partner.
Yeah.
He came to me, we met at a party, a mutual friend arranged for us to meet at a party, and he said to Tom, I know this guy who might invest in your business.
Right.
And I had no intention of investing in the business, but it was when I met Tom and saw his passion, and we had several discussions, and I realised I wasn't necessarily investing in the business, I was investing in Tom.
Yeah.
And that's an important distinction between an investor and a business owner. If the person has real passion for the business, that's usually a very good sign that the business will succeed.
Right.
It isn't always about the business. It's about the passion of the person and the person understanding what they're actually doing and their goal, their long-term goal, and where they're heading.
Yeah.
There's no such thing as a quick buck. There is occasionally, but usually there's a disaster at the end of it at some point. So when I started with Wireless Nation and Tom, I put in capital to get the thing going, and then realised there wasn't proper structure.
Yeah.
So we restructured the whole business over a period of time, put in proper management systems, put in proper shareholders agreements, lots and lots of dull stuff, what I call the dull stuff, which doesn't interest me, but it's very important to make a business run.
Yeah.
And so that if there's ever a problem, there's a formula.
Right.
All right, which is extremely important for a startup. That is really important. You have a formula when you start up, because if you don't have that formula right at the start and something goes wrong between shareholders or directors, you've got a big problem.
Yeah.
So that was one thing I learned, and then as we went along, we grew the business rapidly, but the problem was it was eating a lot of capital. And I was pumping a lot of money into this business every month. And the experts, the lawyers, the accountants, they're all telling me, don't do it, pull out.
Yeah.
This is risky and you're throwing so much money away.
Yeah.
And I had several discussions with Tom, and I stood my ground and said, no, I'm not pulling out. I'm keeping pumping this money in.
Because you still believed in Tom.
I still believed in Tom.
Yeah.
And I still believed in the business.
Yeah.
And as it's turned out, now the business is flourishing
now, yeah.
And we're not the cheapest in the market, but we offer the best service.
But it took time though, didn't it? It's not been a short journey.
No.
And you've had to really persevere.
Yep, that's right. Well, I've been involved 12 years. Tom started the business 15 years ago. And I've been involved for 12 years. And Andy, our GM's come in, and he's the best thing since sliced bread for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's another big step that a company, an owner has to realise or recognise at a point they have to let go.
Right.
A lot of them just can't let go. They have to realise, they have to realise their strengths and step back and let somebody else take over some of the role.
Yeah.
And they need to go back and focus on what made this business work in the first place.
Right.
And that's very important. and that will see the business grow really well.
So would it be fair to say that really with Wireless Nation, although it's been going about, say, 15 years, it's only really been in the sort of the last maybe 3 or 4 years that it's really blossomed?
Yes, it has. And that is, a lot of that is because of systems. We've put systems in place. We've used a lot more technology these days. In the early days, there wasn't that technology. It wasn't as advanced.
Yeah.
And Tom is very much into technology. And he realises that where you can use systems and not people,
Yeah.
there's a lot less chance of mistakes.
Right.
So we love employing people. There's nothing wrong with employing people,
Yeah.
but there are certain tasks that are very repetitive that people don't like doing, and when they don't like doing something, that's when mistakes happen.
Yeah.
So we have implemented a lot of technology in those areas to help staff moving forward and fellow workers.
Yeah. So I think one of the messages out of that, though, is just the fact that, it's not an overnight thing typically with businesses. It can be quite a long journey through to success. And I think Wireless Nation's a great example of that, where, you went through some challenges, but ultimately you've got a business now that's really blossomed.
Yeah, we've gone through a lot of challenges, and I think recognising a specific niche market has been very important for us, and building working relationships with other companies and other organisations. We're heavily involved with the Motorhome Association, which has been one of the best and most rewarding ventures that we've entered into.
Right.
We now supply all the broadband, or most of the broadband, for a lot of the motorhomers around the country that travel.
Yeah.
We've recognised the need that they have, and also I think travelling locally, we have a lot of reps and company reps that travel the road that use these long haul trucks, use our data system. Buses, trains can use it. We do a lot of work with DOC, satellite communications on remote islands, monitoring birds.
Real niche.
We're in a niche market. And we've recently signed a contract with the Coast Guard. So we're now looking into the Coast Guard, doing a lot of work with them for their recreational members, and fishing trawlers, a lot of that sort of thing. So it's very interesting. It's an interesting market.
Yeah.
And it's just finding those niches in your market that makes the big difference.
So in your career, rather than, specialising in a particular field, you've really had a great deal of diversity. Was that a planned thing, or have you just sort of kind of fallen from one opportunity to another?
It definitely hasn't been fully planned. But it's recognising an opportunity when it comes along.
Right.
And as I said earlier on, it's recognising the people that are actually involved and feeling comfortable working with those people. A lot of investors will invest in a business and all they look at is the bottom line. They don't want to know anything but the bottom line.
Right.
And while in a lot of cases that is beneficial to the business, it's not so beneficial in the long term, because you need innovation in the business, and if a business is constrained by regulation, it is very hard to grow that business using innovative methods to move into a different direction, or allowing other members of the team to recognise opportunities that can be brought forward to expand the business.
Right. So looking back now, what do you think have been the keys to your success?
Trusting people, working with people. All businesses I've been involved in have all had very good integrity with other businesses.
Right.
And I think that has stood us in good stead going forward. Banks are very conservative, but it's all about relationships. If you build a very strong relationship with your bank, with your accountant, with whoever you're dealing with, and keep that communication open, they will all work with you, not against you,
right,
which is an extremely important part. And it's the same thing goes for every member of the team and your staff or members of the team that you're working with. That communication is extremely important, keeping the door open, where if you encourage staff members to use their innovative thoughts and help you, they feel part of the business and part of the team, and they'll go the extra mile to help make this business a success.
Right.
And when it becomes a success, everybody is successful.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. So do you think that you had any particular skill in being able to identify what the market wants, or do you just think that you put more effort in than maybe other people to actually understanding what the market wants? Because that seems to be a common theme in everything that you've done, is that you've had this ability, maybe, or just a willingness to get down and understand the market and therefore identify the opportunity.
Well, some of it's ability, and some of it is putting yourself in the other person's position.
Right.
So everything I look at, or a decision I'm going to make, whether it be reprimanding somebody at work, a staff member, or, which I don't have to do very often, thank goodness, or actually making a decision on anything to do with anything, I always put myself in that position and say, if I was sitting there, what would I accept as being fair?
Right.
And that's a very important thing. There's no point in screaming at somebody because it doesn't help fix the problem.
No.
The easiest way to fix the problem is act calmly and talk to them and get them on board to help you fix the problem, because they know more about the problem than you do often, because they are the one that created it.
Right.
All right?
That makes
so
sense.
you need them to help you work the problem out.
Yeah.
And by acting in that way, you will get a lot more respect than you will screaming and yelling.
Right. That makes sense. So like, one of the things in the media is they often, they really gloss over the struggles that business owners have. They tend to kind of portray the, overnight success. Can you, really shine a light on the real reality of running businesses? By maybe sharing with us, have you had struggles during your time, and was there any time when you really, were worried that you weren't going to make it through?
Yes. Business isn't built in a day.
Yeah.
Every successful business has taken years to get to where it's got. And there are always struggles. It doesn't matter what the business is, there are always struggles. And people underestimate when they start a business what struggles they're going to have.
Yeah.
A lot of them think, I've got 10,000 in the bank, I'm going to start something small. But that 10,000's gone very quickly.
Yeah.
Especially when it starts, we need to buy this, or we need to fix that, or we need to add this software, or we need to do this thing, or we need these extra licenses for this, that, and everything else. Suddenly compliance takes over and the business is struggling. So you have to be innovative, you have to stick to your guns and be focused and passionate about what you're doing. If you're not passionate about doing what you're doing, don't do it in the first place.
Right.
You have to be passionate. No good to try and start a business because for the reason, I don't have a job now, I'm going to start a business. There's no way to start a business.
No.
If you do, you won't last and you'll lose the rest of what you haven't got.
Yeah. So one of the keys, really, one of the messages from you for the keys to success is to be passionate about what you're doing, to really believe in what you're doing.
Yep, absolutely passionate. Everybody that I've been in partnership with or business with that is passionate has succeeded.
Yeah.
I've had my ups and downs. I've had businesses fold up. I've helped other people whose businesses have folded up. And in a lot of cases, I know why those businesses have folded up, and I knew why the one I was involved in folded up.
Yeah.
And it's sometimes external forces, sometimes it's mismanagement.
Yeah.
Changing direction. Often a person will sell a business and somebody else will buy a business thinking, this is great, I'm going to do this, that, and everything else. They rush in and instead of running the business the way it was first, they go and immediately try and change it.
Yeah.
Right? That's the first key to disaster. You're better to work in a business for 12 months before you change anything.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, you won't understand the customers and you won't understand the needs of the business. That is an extremely important thing to understand.
And it could be a good reason, like they may have not done what you're planning to do because they know the business and know why it's not going to work.
That's right, exactly right.
Yeah.
And this is where I find working with young people, they have these great ideas and they rush off and they do things thinking it's going to be a great success. And the problem is that where I see a lot of issues, they come to me when it's turning to disaster and say, I can't understand why this has gone like this. It's just not working.
Yeah.
And I sit down with them and say, well, going down that path, have you thought about X, Y, and Z? X, Y, and Z could happen by following that path. Oh, I didn't know anything about that. And I said, well, in a lot of cases, you need to understand that. So where do I go to find out? Well, the thing is, you've got to research really carefully before you go down a path, or X, Y, Z is likely to happen. It could be X and Y are great, but Z will kill you.
Yeah.
All right? So you've got to make sure that you haven't just looked at the good bits, you've looked at the parts that could kill you as well.
Yeah.
So to avoid those, you have to modify X and Y before you hit Z.
One of the I guess messages that I've had relayed to me and I've experienced myself is one of, it's important to be passionate about what you want to do, but it's kind of not too bad to be a little bit naive about what all it's going to involve, because sometimes if you fully knew what it was going to involve, you would never have done it. But if you don't quite know it, or you go in naively, but you've got the passion to get through when it turns out to be a lot harder than you thought.
Yep.
And that's where I've witnessed people be successful because they've been a bit naive, but they've been really passionate, and that passion's got them through those obstacles that they had no idea were going to come their way. Would you agree with that?
I would totally agree with that. When I entered Wireless Nation, I'm not a techie, all right? I'm totally naive in that side of the business.
Yeah.
I'm not so naive these days, although I couldn't do a lot of the stuff that Tom does. Tom is our technical director and he manages all that side of the business.
Yeah.
What I am doing more and more these days is more relationships, managing things like that, sorting other issues out.
Strategic
alliances, that sort of thing is where I find I can do quite well.
Yeah.
And that's where I mainly sit these days in most businesses,
Yeah.
and helping young people start business. I'm passionate about that. I'm working hard at the moment to open a business school within my old high school.
Yeah.
I've been trying to do that for the last 10 years, but they've now agreed and they're on board.
Yeah.
And we're hopefully opening next year.
Wow.
So that the model that we have developed, I'm sure the David Ferguson, the headmaster of Westlake, is keen to roll that out through other secondary schools, but we are going to trial it first.
Yeah.
And if it works the way I'm hoping it's going to work, it could be a model that could be rolled out through high schools.
Fantastic.
And it will give my old high school, an edge, a benefit to actually toward offshore students, toward other students coming to the school.
Yeah.
It's another string to their bow to offer in subjects.
Yeah.
And entrepreneurship is becoming a buzzword these days, but not everybody's an entrepreneur.
No.
I see lots and lots of students that think they're an entrepreneur, but they will struggle.
Right.
I can tell they're going to struggle straight away after talking to them.
Right.
I know they're going to struggle because they haven't got the right attitude and they don't understand. They haven't got the perseverance. You need solid perseverance if you're going to succeed in business.
Yeah, and that brings me to, I guess, my final question for you, and that is, what advice would you give to aspiring business people to help them to succeed?
They have to be passionate about where they're going to go.
Yeah.
They have to understand their market really well, and they have to have proper systems put in place when they start the business. If you are going into business with somebody else other than yourself, just yourself, You need to have a proper shareholders agreement right at the start. You don't divide all the shares up, and if you're going in with 6 people, you don't give shares to everybody in the team, because within 12 months some of those team members won't want to be there.
Right.
And if they disappear overseas, like I have seen in some of these businesses where young people have all gone in and put in $5,000 each to start a business, and they've all taken up shares, and then some of them, there's been a scrap between them, and 3 of them have left and gone off on an OE or gone doing something else, and they still hold the shareholding, the company gets strangled.
Right.
So all these mistakes are easy to make, and they all seem great at the start, but you need to put systems in place while everybody is happy, because it's no good trying to put a system in place when this shit's hit the fan.
Yeah.
All right? Because nobody will agree. So you need to put all the systems in place right from day one. Shareholders, agreements, mainly structures for accounting, everything needs to be properly in place. Otherwise it will cause you nightmares later and cost 4 times as much.
And the thing with that, though, is it's the boring stuff. And a lot of people will be put off it because they think, oh, that's boring, we'll worry about that later.
And it's going to cost me too much.
Yeah.
That's the main thing. It's boring and it's going to cost me too much. And I don't want to spend that money. I want to spend it somewhere else.
Yeah.
Well, I'll spend 10 times that money fixing it up later.
Yeah. And clearly that you're speaking from a lot of experience. So, part of, this whole podcast is really to share the knowledge and experience of people like you with the listeners, so that hopefully they can shortcut the whole process a little bit and not make some of the mistakes that others have done in the past.
Yep. Oh, that's great.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Bill, for today. I really appreciate it. It's been really enjoyable from my point of view. I'm sure the listeners will enjoy it too. But thank you so much.
Thanks very much for the opportunity.
No, it's been fantastic.
I've enjoyed it very much. So
thank you. So that's it today for Making Sense of Marketing's Insights into Success podcast. And we hope to see you again soon.